Hello, this is Dan the Furniture Repairman. Today I'm going to show you step by step how I apply color and varnish. We're going to do this on this little child's rocker. It's a beautiful little piece. Here we've stripped and sanded it a bit, and here we've sanded it down further. And you can see on the piece we have a bunch of this spalting. This is caused by, I think, a fungus or something in the wood, and it's not very attractive at all. And we're going to have to get rid of it. Before we get rid of it, and then right there you see some damage. And this is the process I use on these types of pieces. I don't start out by staining them because it locks the color in, and where the wood is broken it kind of absorbs it. Now this is we call this my mixing bench. I'm going to start with nitrocellulose lacquer sanding sealer, and I mix mine. I'm in California. VOC laws are very strict here, so we can't get lacquer thinners like most of the country, and we've learned to adapt. So some people have given up, but I don't give up, so I adapt it. So I go 80% of my lacquer and 20% of acetone. Now we use acetone because I'm pretty sure they're not going to take it away from us. It's zero VOC. It is much hotter than lacquer thinner, but the lacquer thinners we get here aren't too good. So we've just learned to use acetone. Now acetone chemically breaks down the viscosity of the lacquer so that it'll flow better. But a lot of the things in our lacquer, because of the low VOCs, have been removed, and that's the way the whole country is going to go eventually. So I'm pouring it into my spray cup here. I do like using this system because I can have multiple cups set up. This one's going to have sealer in it. One may have gloss in it. One may have a color in it, and I can just flip them through my gun. I don't have to keep emptying, and cleaning my gun is much easier. So the top just pops on like that, and I'm going to screw on this part here, and then it goes right onto my gun. It's not an expensive system. There is a newer version of it, but this system isn't that expensive. And I usually just do here is I just kind of squeeze the trigger a few times, make sure my flow is good coming out of the gun, there's no problems, and then I shake my gun up. Now, with this chair, and with almost all chairs, a lot of tables, anything that I can turn over, I start with it upside down. This lets me get the hard to reach places much easier, and I can get them out of the way. So I start out spraying most of my pieces with them either upside down or on their side, so I can get at those areas. What you don't want to do is start putting on your sealer and then have to turn it over onto fresh sealer and create yourself problems in your sealer. Now as I spray it, this is the first coat, so this coat is going to mechanically bind to the wood. It's going to penetrate into the wood and dry, and it's going to create our first coat, which is going to let us put our other coats on top of it. Now lacquer will melt the coat it's sprayed onto, and basically they all become one coat, so it chemically adheres to the coat you're spraying it on. Most varnishes don't. Most varnishes you have to sand between coats, and when you sand between coats you rough them up so that the next coat can grab onto it like Velcro. But lacquer, we don't have to do it. We don't have to sand between coats. The only time we sand between coats is after the first coat, because a lot of times the wood fibers need to be knocked down a little bit, or if we have overspray or something happen that's a little bit rough and we just knock it down with a little bit of a 220 or a 320. Now here you can see we have the spalting jumps out and gets even louder after we have the first coat of sealer, and then I flip my chair over and I'm working it the same way, and I'm kind of working at a funny angle here because I'm trying to stay out of the way of the camera. So this is a little different than I normally spray, but it's a spit coat. It really is just a light coat, and I'm going to do two coats. I'm going to do my spit coat, I'm going to sand, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to do a little bit of a heavier coat to get it to where I'm happy with the way it looks, and then we're going to go to the color part. But what you want to do is not go too heavy. Don't cause yourself runs and drips and problems like that. You could always go lighter coats and build, and it's much easier. And here you go. You can see the spalting is very loud right here, and we're going to deal with that. So this is a Mohawk blend all powder, and this is white. And I'm going to do is use two colors. I'm going to use white, and I'm going to use pine. And this is a little palette paper plate with some tin foil on it, and I just keep changing the tin foil. And here's a little bit of pine powder I'm putting on there, and then here's a little bit of the white powder I'm putting in there. And just like first grade art class, you're going to finger paint it and mix it up and see what color you get. And you want to get a color that's going to blend into your piece right there. Now the way I'm applying it is I'm kind of just going lightly over the areas I want to change. I'm not trying to paint them out. I'm streaking it. I'm hitting some areas. I'm missing some other areas. You don't want to be too perfect. If you paint all that out perfectly, you're just going to end up with a something that's completely different in color. What you need to do is ease it into the other colors so it blends. Make it appealing to the eye. And that sometimes you have to put the brush down, take 5 or 6 steps away, look at it from a little bit of a distance, look at it from the right, look at it from the left, and then you're going to add more color. So color is something like you're never going to get there in one shot. I equate it to playing golf. No holes in ones are very rare. Just try to hit a good shot off the tee and stay out of trouble. And then you're going to get a smaller club and you hit it down the fairway a little bit more until eventually it's very close to being finished and you just give it a little tap in the hole. So don't be afraid to change color. Now, if your color's wrong, just take a rag and put some denatured alcohol on it and wipe off the color that's there. That's why I like working with the powders and denatured as opposed to sealers or something else, because then they're more locked in. This lets me adjust color, and even if it's dry, I could just rub the dry color off most of the time. So here I'm going to just dot in a little bit more, and I'm just kind of putting color around the piece, and I'm letting it set up. Now wherever I dot it, it's going to be a little bit heavier, and then I put a little denatured alcohol on my brush, and I take that color and I draw it up into the other area. So on the top corner here, you can see how we started, and then you can see where we got to. Now I'm going to work on this arm, and a lot of times I'll have people that dislike knots in wood, and there's a lot of different reasons, but they don't want knots to be there. And knots are very hard to get rid of. There's people that drill them out with saws and put plugs in there, and there's people that take little brushes and draw them out and everything like that. But if you run around it, you can actually just blend it out a good bit of the way and then put your color over the top of it, and the knot will almost not be visible. Look at that, the knot's not, and that usually will make the piece acceptable. So it's a little trick I've learned over the years. I'll ask questions about people when we're refinishing their pieces, that maybe it's a knotty pine, something like that, and I'll ask somebody who's like, do these knots okay? Now here we are, we're done with our touch-up. I went all the way around the chair. The powder looks, drier. The nature alcohol is evaporated. Now it's just powder on the piece. It was in the jar, then it was on the palette, and now it's on the chair. And we have to put some sealer or some lacquer on it to bind it back together, and it's going to look much different as we spray it. But this is what it's going to look like, and you see, you'll have to learn the system, but you'll see how much and to put on and when to stop. So you can always add another coat of color, so my advice is stop sooner. Now this is just another coat of sealer, so this is my third coat of sealer. I have my spit coat, and then I have my second coat, and now I'm going with a third coat of sealer. After that, I'm going to switch over probably to a gloss or a satin varnish. I have to decide yet, but you can see how it's kind of like blending that whole piece right in. It's kind of sealing in that color. Now, this wouldn't be really perfect if this was just going to be the end product. I'd have to go back and do some more touch up over it to blend it more into the wood. But I know I'm putting a color over the top of this, and then this is going to be just fine. And this is going to come with trial and error. And there's nothing wrong with grabbing some scrap lumber and practicing on it. Believe me, I did that for a good part of my career. Is just practice on stuff, and you'll make your mistakes on that. And then when you're ready, then you take the piece that you're really working on, and you've made a bunch of your mistakes, and you're not going to make them again. So here we go. We're spraying our coat of sealer, and you can see I'm going a little heavier. And this is my product right here. So this looks more now like an Idaho white pine to me than it does a Doug fir framing lumber. Here you see the before and after picture. Watch part 2. I'm going to show you how I put my color on this. This is Dan the Furniture Repairman. Thank you so much for watching. You all have a good day.